Good morning, everyone. Are you feeling disorganized with all the different directions you're being pulled during your family's journey through military transition or retirement? As a military spouse, we are frequently put in place to support our soldiers best by keeping them on track and organized. Today's guests, Heidi and Mike Barker, are the creators of an Agile Transition Trello Board, which is a one-stop shop for organizing all the topics you'll want to talk about and all the decisions you're going to need to make, as well as a timeline to keep you on schedule during your military retirement or transition. If you're not sure how to use Trello, don't worry. You can go ahead and jump on to our email list. There's a link right there, and I'm going to drop it in the comments. But you can jump onto our email list, and I'm going to email you not only a link to this Trello board, but a short Loom video showing you exactly how you can use this amazing tool. The best part of all of this is Trello is 100% free. It's an amazing organizational tool that I use both in my business and personal life. So if you feel disorganized and unsure of what to do first, don't worry, you're not alone. And I'm super glad that you've joined me today for this SpouseLink live stream. Now, just to introduce myself very quickly, I'm Anna Larson. I'm a copywriter and a digital marketer by trade. In my spare time, I'm a homeschool mom and I'm a retired military spouse as of almost exactly 1 year. I found my way to SpouseLink after my soldier retired from the active duty service in the United States Army. Now, SpouseLink was created in 2012 by AFMA, the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. And what they do is they connect military spouses to information that matters the most. And so SpouseLink is a really great resource for both active duty and retired spouses. Now, I would love for you to tell me where you're joining me from. Give me a little bit of information about who you are as we go through this live stream. Interaction is wonderful. I'd love to hear some comments and maybe we can respond and give you some answers of things that you might be interested in learning more about. Now, I'm not going to sit and talk at you all day. I actually have two amazing guests that I want to be sure and introduce you to. So let me pull up their bios here. All right, let's start with Heidi. Now, Heidi, I met on LinkedIn, and it was actually our transition process that brought me to her. But Heidi is an education and training professional who likes to say she's a lifelong learner and a multi-potentialite. She has worked in a variety of roles, from being an elementary teacher in Texas to a virtual e-learning developer for Coursera. Heidi enjoys volunteering and helping others. She's volunteered across the world in her military and local communities. She currently volunteers for several organizations virtually, including Blue Star Families and I Can Help. In her spare time, Heidi enjoys playing with and walking her dog, and she can also be found knitting something for family members. Now, Heidi's spouse, Mike Barker, was born and raised in a small town in Wisconsin. He graduated from the University of Wisconsin at Whitewater and iterated with the Army for 17 years as an intelligence officer. Now, he's been lucky enough to have a front seat in history during his time in the Army. He was involved in the capture of Saddam Hussein in Iraq in 2003. He's managed the most intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance data collection assets in the history of warfare during the surge in Afghanistan in 2011, and most recently is a member of the intelligence team at Army Futures, where he was able to get certified as a Scrum Master while getting hands-on experience while they implemented agile methods to set up, organize, and open the intelligence directorate in Austin, Texas. Now, Mike continued to gain experience with Agile by working for the 90th Cyber Operations Squadron as a Scrum Master, and currently he's helping Rackspace Technology implement the Scaled Agile framework. Mike loves to chat with folks about how they can be as agile as they can be wherever he can. When he's not working on refining his backlog or tackling his to-do column on his Kanban or working on the Agile military transition template he built on Trello, he enjoys taking his 2004 Jeep Wrangler Bubba out four-wheeling, playing poker, and traveling with his wife, Heidi. So I'm going to pull those two in right now and say hi. Hello, Heidi and Mike Barker. How are you?
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, good. Well, I am super excited to have you on here with me today. Today, we're going to be talking about this amazing Agile Transition Trello board that we're going to say Mike created it and Heidi donated to. That's how we're going to put it. And we're going to find out a little bit more about that in a little bit. But I just want to remind everyone, if you don't know how to use Trello, this is still very useful, because if you are nearing that transition or retirement phase, it is worth it to kind of figure this very simple organizational tool out, because this Trello board is amazing. Like, I wish I'd had it when we went through our transition. I feel like it would have made things a ton easier for us. And as I mentioned before, I do have a short Loom video that you can receive that helps you kind of navigate how this tool works. But okay, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move some people around in this live stream, because, you know, we want you guys front and center. But I have my very first question, and I'm just going to throw it at Mike right now. So Mike, can you just start off and tell us, what was your retirement journey like?
Well, Anna, it started pretty early. I knew that I was probably going to be done at the 20-year mark. And so I had been talking to different folks, as they transitioned, about their transition. I was lucky enough to be around several different folks that retired, many of my soldiers that transitioned out of the Army. And so I knew that I needed to start early, because it was going to be a little bit more difficult than what most people anticipated, right? So in like 2017, I was looking at all the things I needed to do. 2018 hit, and I was signing up for counseling with, SFL TAP, and doing all the things that I wanted to start doing to look at retiring in 2020. And I found that there wasn't a lot of the resources that I thought there would be out there. I considered myself a pretty good Googler, and I couldn't find any checklists or timelines or even lists or briefings that told me, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And so I got a little frustrated there, and kind of set it off to the side a little bit. We moved, fast forward to 2019, knew I was going to be retiring, started looking at it again, got more involved in Agile stuff, started looking for things again, got involved in LinkedIn, met a gentleman by the name of Kirk, who had a timeline. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Put that in the kit bag, pulled it back out when I dropped my paperwork, and said, okay, what do I got to do now? We had gone through SFL TAP, the screening, the course live in person at Fort Hood, so that we could get that out of the way. And we started the whole process, started looking at everything, but it was bumpy, right? It was, not always going as well as I wanted it to. I took Kirk's timeline, tossed it into a Trello board, and made that my backlog, and started working through it, right? And so it developed, it evolved, but it definitely was not always as smooth as I would have liked it to have been. But we got through it, and I'm on 9 months on the other side of it now.
Right. So I'm just going to say, there's a couple of things about your story that I find so interesting. First of all, the fact that like 4 years out, you're already going, I should start thinking about retirement, I think is unusual. But your experience is not, it is not something that doesn't, it happens more frequently than we realize. And so for anyone that is watching right now, 4 to 5 years out really is the time frame that we should start looking at what's going to be required for retirement. I didn't realize that. I mean, we were like 14 months out, and we were like, maybe we should retire. Maybe. That's kind of like the process that happened for us, right? So 5 years out, we weren't even considering it 5 years out. We were like, 5-year plan, sometime in the next 10 we'll be done, right? Anyway, both that, and then also the fact that when you started looking for resources that you were unable to find them. And I still find that true today, especially for military spouses. there's a lot of resources for veterans now. They're getting better and better and better. The timelines are getting better. The resources are getting better. The support networks are getting better, especially if you're on LinkedIn. But for military spouses, it's not that way. So I really encourage everyone to like listen to what Mike is saying right now. Heidi, did you find that you had resources available to you like during this retirement journey? What was it like for you as Mike was looking for these things and not finding them?
Honestly, he didn't talk to me a lot about it. I did go to the SFL TAP with him, but then as many people discover, you know, it's not the only thing you need. It's required by the military, but it's not going to completely set you up to be ready to retire. So there's a lot more that goes into it. And at the time I was in the clouds. I don't know.
Now
COVID and everything else.
You guys did SFL TAP like a few years out, right? Like, I mean, normally you're doing the SFL TAP that last year or like right at the beginning of that last year when retirement happens.
We did it early too because they say you can go more than once. So we had figured we would do it that one time, do the things we needed to do, go back for anything that we were, you know, that was not clear or something that we needed more information on.
Got it. And then I do know, just because we've talked about it, but your experience like mine is when COVID hit, there was no more SFL TAP and going to it and really accessing those classes. So we never even had the opportunity to do that, other than the virtual ones that were still, you know, that just, I don't think are the same experience necessarily. So very interesting. Okay. So, while I still have you both here, I'm going to just move on to my second question, which is essentially, tell me, can each of you, I'm just going to throw each of you up here again, but I'd love to hear how this level of structure and organization and building this Trello board helped you through this process. And so, Mike, I'm going to put you in the hot seat first, because I kind of want to go through this Trello board and talk about this, what was it, the graphic, the timeline that you found on LinkedIn and kind of how that you used that. And I did pull up some slides. Let's throw up first this. Okay, so for everyone watching, if you aren't familiar with Trello, we're going to just do a really quick how-to before we actually answer this question. So Trello, when you sign up for it, you can create a board, and the board is essentially whatever your main topic one. In this case, this is an Agile military transition board. And within the board, then you also have lists, and the lists are made up of individual cards. So your lists are kind of like your to-do list or your thought list or your process list, whatever it is, however it is that you organize and you organize yourself. And then within the cards is where you're going to put your details. You can keep individual checklists within your card. You can set timelines. You can label it in certain ways so that you know exactly what it is or what it pertains to. And so this is what Mike created when, I'm just going to go back here, when he created this Trello board here. So, all right, taking that out. So now, Mike, let me ask that question one more time. How did staying organized, this level of structure, help you through the retirement process?
So it looks really organized now, right? It's in this nice, pretty template. You know, it's got that beautiful background with the train tunnel with the, you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. This will end. But it wasn't always this pretty, right? It was literally starting with that checklist and going, okay, what do I got to do? Building a backlog and then applying agile methods to really get after the transition. And staying organized kept me on track. You know, one of the things that it was interesting that I really didn't even think about necessarily that since we've talked is like it. You know, I talk about Scrum for one. It should be Scrum for two. Heidi pointed it out earlier. Like, I didn't talk to her a lot about our transition. When we got closer to the transition, we were, you know, making decisions about where we wanted to live, what we wanted to do, where I was going to get a job, if I was going to get this type of job or that type of job. And we talked about those kinds of things, but we didn't talk about like finding resources. We talked a little bit about LinkedIn. We got each other involved in LinkedIn and stuff, but it was not necessarily as organized as it could have been. But that's the beauty of using agile methods is it gives you a process, like follow a process, right? Have a list. It doesn't have to be on a Trello board. It doesn't have to be electronic. You can just make a checklist or, download a checklist or even pull the timeline off of the Trello board and just use that. Just as long as you follow a process, that's what it's all about. For me, applying Scrum to this really helped me stay organized and stay on track.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit more about what Scrum is, because that's not a term everyone is going to be super familiar with. But I want to pull up that initial timeline that you used to create the Trello board. Now, here, let me do it this way. We're going to do it this way. So this made me laugh when I first saw it, because Mike's like, well, this is very normal. And I'm looking at it going, what in the world? Like, I can follow arrows, but this is not an organizational tool that is going to be super useful for me. I am not going to look at this and be like, yeah, I know exactly what to do and in what order to do it. Yes, I could figure it out, but my brain does not work in this way. So, Mike, this is what you use to create the Trello board. And you told me, oh, if you're military, you're going to recognize this. But for a military spouse, maybe not so helpful, right?
I hadn't thought about that either until you mentioned it. Really, is like, oh yeah, I guess it's something that we look at in our operational planning all the time, but it's not something that necessarily that a spouse could necessarily.
Like, Heidi, are you with me? Do you look at this and think, yes, I know exactly where to go and what to do. I can figure this out. This is going to be a super useful checklist for me.
No, like now it does make sense. Some of the things, like when a soldier makes a list of spouses or something, it does sometimes look like this. Now it makes sense.
Now we know why, right? Well, I love that this is just for anyone listening, this is available. Mike has attached this onto the Trello board. So this is available as kind of like a one pager you can print out if you want and just, hang it on your fridge. And if this is something that, when you can look at and recognize as an organizational list that you can use, then this is also available. So like he was saying, I think any way that you can keep that organized list, it's going to help support your retirement process. So Heidi, what about you? I'm going to throw you in the spotlight. How did this work for you as far as like staying more organized?
For me, it was, just a relief that he had had this organization and was keeping track of it. Because, there's a lot of things that if you let slip, then it's going to delay, payment or things like that. So being organized and having this process really helped. And I was familiar with the Trello board. So anytime anyone said anything about retirement, I'm like, oh, my husband made this board. And I would share it. And I didn't even realize I also had, gave him suggestions about things to add to it throughout the process as I learned things. So like you said, he made it, but I contributed.
I feel like there's an opportunity here to continue to build this out and even have like a spouse version or, cards that are specific for military spouses, because there's things that we can help with and things we cannot do. We cannot do some of these like closeout processes. We're not working for the military. The soldier is working for the military. So they have to do so many of these. But I did also learn that through those SFL tasks, when I took a few of them after the fact, that there's a lot of stuff that the soldiers doing independent that I would have loved to have seen it be more of a joint effort if they're married, if they're in a marriage, in a marriage situation or a partner situation where that's appropriate. And I like to use this example when I took the finance one and found out that they were creating 5-year financial plans. And I said, John, that's my soldier. John, did you create a 5-year financial plan. He's like, well, yeah, I mean, if they told me to, I did. And I'm like, were you going to share it with me? You know, I mean, like, he's like, well, I don't know that I'd have to go looking for it. So it was something that he did to check a box as opposed to something he truly did to support that retirement journey. And I think that's where things fall short. And that's where your Trello board, Mike, can really come into play in terms of like, bringing together the items and the people involved in it, all the checklist and the people, and really making it an interactive and useful process as opposed to the soldier checking boxes, the spouse going crazy because they don't really truly know what's happening at any one moment. So anyway, okay. So question number 3, Mike, I'm going to put you back in the hot seat because I promised we'd talk a little bit more about this Scrum thing. And so I'd love for you to explain just a little bit more. What is a Scrum for one, and how is it applied to this Trello board?
So Scrum is something that software developers use to develop unknown products, right? So it's a very flexible way of working that allows you to adjust incrementally over time and yet stay organized and stay on track and not necessarily have like all these fixed requirements that you have to meet and then you're done. It's more of, okay, we kind of know what we want. We're gonna build something that we think that a customer wants. And then we're going to show it to a customer. We're going to get feedback, and then we're going to do it again. And we're going to iteratively improve over time and get to a working product for that customer so that they can actually use it. So you can apply this to just about anything. In my mind, you can apply it to your everyday life. You can apply it to military transition. You can apply it to almost work. So it's taking a small group of people typically and setting up organized ceremonies. So you have a daily stand-up, you have a either a 2-week to a month-long sprints, and then you have at the end of those what we call retrospectives. In the Army, it would have been an AAR, an after-action review. And then you also have a demo. So you're demonstrating what the product is that you've completed so that you can then get feedback on the product. So you then continue improving. And then you go into planning and you do sprint planning. You decide, okay, this is what we're going to do from the backlog. We have that backlog we built out. We keep adding to it as we come up with ideas of like, okay, how can we improve this product? We prioritize that backlog. And then we plan, we go, okay, I can do 5 things this week or this next 2 weeks or this next month. I'm going to do these 5 things. And then you start working, you go at the beginning of the day, you have that stand up, you talk about, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I completed. And this is what I'm having challenges with.
Okay.
And then
so,
as you go, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Please finish. But I wanted you to apply this. I'm going to pull up the Trello board just so you can kind of walk through it and kind of apply what you're talking about to the actual Trello board itself. So let me add this, and I'm going to make us all big again. So here is the actual Trello board. Let me pull this off right here so we can see all the way down. And okay. Let me make it a little bit bigger if I can.
So what you're going to want to do with this specific Trello board, the way I would recommend someone use it is, okay, you have those 3 columns there. Some of the feedback I got on the Trello board was like, Mike, there's way too much information right up front. You're just overwhelming me. I don't know where even to start with this thing. And so what you want to do is you want to start in the far left column. What I recommend people do is actually drag that column next to the sprint backlog and really start looking at the things that they need to do in that backlog. So if you drag it all the way to next to sprint backlog, it allows you to set it there. Look at, okay, you read the welcome, you watch the video. We're actually going to add the SpouseLink video that you produced in there, so that there's a beginner's video that and of course you notice it's in red. That's overdue because I've been meaning to make a video like that for see here, 2 years now.
Yeah.
It's not quite hit the top of the to-do list yet.
This is a work in progress. It's a work in progress.
It's continuing to improve, and if folks have resources or feedback on it, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn's in the Trello board, and they can give me feedback. But what you want to do is, okay, so you look at this list and say, okay, what are the things that I think are the most important? And you start building your backlog. You could actually use this 1 to 3 year as a backlog, and you just slide those things over and get, okay, these are the things I'm actually going to do out of this list. So you want to make it bite-sized pieces, right? You don't want to try to eat the whole elephant at once. You want to take one bite at a time, because I couldn't eat a whole elephant at once, right? So you take those top 3 things, you say, okay, I'm going to get this one thing done in the next 2 weeks, right? Because transition is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Yes, we're going to do things in short time frames, and we call them sprints, but it's more like a marathon, because you do this over and over again over a period of time. And if you're starting at 1 to 3 years out, which is amazing, you have time, right? You can break this down into smaller pieces and look at things. So the very first thing is, right, okay, move to the top of the to-do list, figure out when you're going to get out, right? I thought I was going to get out in 2020. Well, life happened, right? The Army PCS'd me. I was enjoying my job. I kind of wanted to keep doing it. So they moved us back to Austin, Texas. And I was like, it's Austin. Why would I get out right now? This is an amazing job, right? So my timeline extended. So I got out in 2021. But having a mark on the wall really helps you backwards plan all the things you got to do, right?
Yeah.
So you move that into to do, the figure out when you were transferred out of the military. And then you can do one thing every 2 weeks, right? If you're 1 to 3 years out, because you don't have to rush. And then what you can do is like, okay, that's in your to-do list. Maybe you drag 3 things in. You drag it in progress when you're actually going to talk to your wife about that, or your partner. And, you say, okay, when are we going to get out? When do we want to be done, right? And she says tomorrow. And I say, we can't do that. So, and then, okay, we've decided we're going to get out in 2021. That's complete. Awesome. Great. And then once you're done with your 2-week sprint, all the things that you've moved into complete, you move on to your wall of success and you celebrate them. Too often we don't celebrate the things we've accomplished. And so that's why we have the wall of success. It also gives us a list of all the things we've done, right? And so if you start applying this kind of stuff to life, like I used it, for building Army Futures Command, I was able to go back into our wall of success and say, Chris, you created 17 SOPs and helped write, job descriptions for 15 people. And, it made writing awards really easy, right? So you got your wall of success, all the things you've done. If you need to search for it and find a resource, again, it's not disappeared. It's still there in the wall of success. As you get closer, you may want to start doing more, or you may need to start doing more. And so you're going to want to do more in your to-do list. The way I specifically did this, I had a mentor through American Corporate Partners. She was an amazing lady that helped me tremendously stay organized and really bounce ideas off of her on what I wanted to do and educate me a little bit on Scrum. She, so every month we met. So I did month-long sprints, and at the end of that sprint the day after was typically our mentorship session. And so I would actually prepare for our mentorship session by going through and going, oh, this is all the things that, we can talk about. And retrospective, like look at, okay, how did I was I staying on track? Was I actually using the board? Was I actually doing stuff on a daily basis, looking at the board? No, I need to do that more often. And then also just share with her all the progress so that I could, understand for myself and celebrate it, and also really keep moving forward in my mind that this is where I'm going.
Yeah. There's a couple of things in here that I really, really love. First of all, you've done all the work. That's the first thing. Second, if anyone here who's not familiar with Trello is watching, I am moving these cards around. You can see how easy this process is and just being able to transfer things and customize this board to what you need. Now, Mike's done the hard work in terms of creating the list. He's also giving you these cards that are like, hey, here's some ideas. Here's how you can use this. Here's a process for you to, follow if you want. But again, totally customizable. But the other part I want to throw up here is look back here. Now he's got the backlog 1 year, 9 months, 6 months, 4 to 5 months, 60 days at transition, and then even a 6 months after column list where you can pull these to-do items from. So it's not just the 1 to 3 years out. You've got this whole other section. And the other thing he's done is you'll notice that some of them, like this right here, retirement specific, this one right here. This means that this is for a 20 plus year retiree that's going through. This is something specific for them. So people who are transitioning out and have not done haven't served the 20 years and aren't doing the actual retirement process, this transition board still works. These same things are things that you're going to be doing, but he's identified the ones that are retirement specific just to kind of help it out. So you can be like, check that off my to-do list. That's not something I have to worry about. I don't have to plan a ceremony. I don't have to do the FedVIP enrollment. I don't have to do, whatever, the TRICARE stuff for the family. We're going to be going a different direction than that. So this is how super useful this is. And this is why I love this board. I mean, I look at this and I start to salivate a little bit going, where was this when I needed you? Because I am a Trello user. I would have loved to have this board. Anyway, just so many customizable options. And I just want to I'm going to pull this out. I just want to say, Mike, kudos, cheers to you for having created such an incredibly useful tool for so many different people. I mean, I think it's going to help so many different people. And like you were saying, if the Trello board doesn't work for you, you can always maybe I'll just throw this in that email I'm sending out, but you can always pull this down. But I also want you to know that SpouseLink created a timeline that we had talked about in a previous conversation where it is like a 1 to 3 years out checklist. It is not as comprehensive as what Mike has created. It's more general. It's going to hit your big, massive points, but it is not as comprehensive as the Trello board that Mike has. But whatever is going to work for your family is what you're going to want to try, and you're going to want something. And so hopefully out of one of these 3 resources, whether your brain thinks in terms of that flow chart or in terms of a Trello board or in terms of a checklist, that there's something that we can provide that will help you. Okay, so we just have a couple more questions and then we can close out this live stream. But I do want to talk to Heidi for just a minute, because the military spouse experience during retirement, like I mentioned before, it's very different. I mean, we've gone through all of these military journeys with our spouse, right? We PCS with them. We aren't deployed, but we go through that deployment with them. The training cycles, the late nights, the duty weekends, all those kinds of things, the 6 a.m. PT calls and where's my reflective bell? I can't find it. It's 5:30 in the morning. I'm going to turn every light on in the house, right? We've been through all of that with our spouse. So what 3 things would you say define your role in this military retirement and transition process as the military spouse?
So this one kind of stumps me a little bit because, you have to reflect on it. And I still feel like we're still newly retired. It'll be a year this summer. But one of the things that really helped me was also realizing that it is a big change for you as the spouse. The service members doing all of these things, checking these boxes, and sometimes you're included, sometimes you're not. And that was a big surprise for me too. The different organizations, there's a lot of support for military spouses right now with employment and different services, But once you're a spouse of a retiree or someone no longer in the military, a lot of those programs don't serve those spouses. So definitely one of the things I looked at when we were getting ready to retire was, what services could I still use? What could benefit me before we're no longer with the military? So definitely thinking about you and what you want to do and looking at those services are two of the things that I would definitely suggest. And then the third is just, talking to each other about all of the different things. And I think we could have done a better job with that. We did, like Mike said, when it came down to it, we did, but I didn't know everything at the time.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what you said, and all three of them are exactly my same experience. Military spouses should be on that 3 to 5 year plan out time frame as well, because there are a lot of services that will only apply to you while you are active duty. And so if you don't take advantage of them while you are active duty, you've missed out now on that opportunity, because once that DD 214 is in the hand of your soldier, you don't qualify for them anymore. That also surprised me. I was surprised how many services went away after retirement that I maybe had counted on a little bit. And then that chatting about things more. And I really feel like this timeline that's been created, this Trello board that's been created, will do that, especially if you implement the Scrum for One, which we're going to do, by the way. We do it every Sunday of family planning, and I'm totally going to implement this. I've got a family Trello board now. I'm all like, I've got so many plans in place right now. My family is going to be like, Mom, this is not a business meeting. They're going to hate it. but I'm going to love it because I like to be organized. So, okay, Heidi and Mike, thank you so much for being here. Before I let you go, can I just ask each of you that as a now retired military family, you are now a retired military family, what piece of advice would you give to other families that are just starting this retirement and transition process? And Heidi, since you're in the hot seat already, I'm just going to start with you.
I would say, it's what we've been talking about. Start early, take advantage of the programs you can join, whether it's a Facebook group, a LinkedIn group, where you can talk about the different benefits that you have right now that you can keep and the ones that no longer apply to you, and, take advantage of them all. A huge one that helped me was the Leader Transition Institute's Changing Focus, Moving from We to Me, because it really helped me think about what my next steps were. And that's often forgotten for the spouse during the transition. And
that program we talked about in one of our very first SpouseLink live streams. So if you want to hear from Annie Brock, who runs that Leader Transition Institute, we've got it on the SpouseLink YouTube page. You can go there and you can just watch and learn a little bit more about what that From We to Me program really can do. I have still not taken it, but it's on my to-do list for this year. And it's, I think she does it every quarter, once a quarter or once every 2 months or something.
Once a month.
Well, look at that, once a month. So it's even more frequent than I realized. So yes, fantastic resource. Thank you, Heidi. Mike, what would you say as your words of wisdom?
So figure out what the end looked like and plan back, right? Figure out, make some of those big decisions as early as you can, as you feel comfortable with, where you want to live. Are you going to have a job? Are you going to go get more education? Are you going to, you have a location in mind? You want to go back, live back by family? You have, a favorite duty station you're going to go back to? Figure out what because those are big decisions, right? And then that helps guide you along the path. It's going to make it a lot smoother. And now I said smoother, not smooth, right? Because it's going to be a bumpy ride. It is. There's going to be days where you're like way up here and you're like, I got this. This is going to be so easy. This is amazing. And then you're going to have something happen and you're going to be like, I'm never going to figure this out. This is a mess. This is going to be horrible. I'm going to fail miserably on the outside. I should stay in. It's going to go, you're going to have highs and lows. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, but in the end, it's going to all work out, right? It's gonna, fall into place. Things will happen. You know, there's certain things that have to happen with the military. Things will work, right? And you just have to keep working at it. You know, you can't sit back and think that it's just gonna, I'm a veteran. Everybody's gonna understand me and take care of me. It's amazing what you have to do to translate what you've done for folks that have never interacted with the military, especially if you're going to move to some place where there is no military bases. They're going to be like, you were a what? In a what? Doing what? Okay, sure. You know, so it's all about figuring out what that end looks like, planning backwards, and, you know, like how you said, start as early as you can, because it's going to take time. And the more time you give yourself, the smoother it will be.
Yes. Both fantastic sets of words of wisdom. I really appreciate that. I wish I had another whole year to go through this process again and implement all these things. Like, I feel like I could do it so much better this time around, you know? So, okay. I want to make sure everyone knows how they can connect with you and Heidi. Can you guys just really quickly connect with our guests? It's on LinkedIn, right? They're both saying connect with them on LinkedIn. So look for Mike Barker, and I believe that's your profile shot. I see you've grown the post-military beard since then.
Yep,
and then Heidi as well, and find them on LinkedIn. If you have additional questions, if you have a suggestion for Mike's Trello board, Heidi's a great person to follow, and she posts. You are so prolific. You're a good poster, and she puts really interesting stuff on there. So go on and find these two, follow them, send them a little note that you've watched the show, and they'd love to hear your input. So, okay. We are at the end. Heidi and Mike, I just want to say thank you again so much for joining me today. This has been one of my favorite topics because I love this Trello board that much. Like, really, it is. It makes me sad that I don't get to really use it. So I'm going to just create my own for post-retirement and post-transition and use it in our family planning now, because I love so much what you have done with this organizational tool. For everyone that's watching right now, I just want to say that our upcoming SpouseLink Lives in April are going to be all about the month of the military family, and so therefore military children. And we're going to talk about transitioning with school-aged children or younger children, the retirement process. If you have children with disabilities, we're going to be talking about some of the resources that are available for you after you get out of the military and how to make that transition from EFMP into civilian life just go a little bit smoother. And I've got some fantastic resources and guests that are going to be coming on in April for that topic specifically. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, go connect with me on LinkedIn, find me on SpouseLink, go find SpouseLink. We'd love to have you join us there. And until next time, Heidi and Mike, thank you again. And we're just going to go ahead and say our goodbyes.